Just because they're not divorced doesn't mean it's all going well. From Homer's many almost affairs to loudly sharing all of her most intimate secrets, we're checking out all the times Marge should have left Homer. We're kicking off our list with one of the biggest sins Homer's ever committed, coming dangerously close to cheating on Marge in The Last Temptation of Homer. So Homer's at work at the power plant like usual, but instead of, working, he's messing around with a claw machine, grabbing at his buddies, and accidentally triggers a near-fatal nuclear meltdown. So yeah, Homer's at work, but does he care that he's almost killed everybody? Nah, it's all fun and games until someone gets hurt, or fired in this case. Mr. Burns gets rid of the poor guy who asked for better safety measures and instead hires Zutroy, some illegal immigrant who is deported almost as soon as he arrives. Burns is told that he has to make drastic changes to the plant's policies, including hiring at least one female employee, preferably one that Burns won't make extremely uncomfortable with his desperate moves. Meanwhile, Dr. Hibbert drops a bomb on Marge. Bart has eye issues, and God only knows what else, which makes him a problem child in school. To correct these issues, Bart's life turns into hell with thick glasses, nerd shoes, the works. He's become the very person he used to bully. And Marge, she's just trying to hold it together, managing Bart's problems and Homer's immaturity all at once. And she has no idea that Homer is drooling over the new hottie at work, Mindy. Honestly, Marge could pack her bags at basically any point in this episode, and she would be right to do so. Homer falls hard for Mindy, who's got it all. She's gorgeous, loves beer, donuts, and even does that stupid Homer noise he loves. She's basically him, but in female form. And no beard. He tries to convince himself to stay faithful to Marge, but his own brain, and some Colonel Angel from TV who's supposed to help, but really doesn't, just keeps telling him how much better off he'd be with Mindy. And then Mr. Burns forces them to go on a business trip to Capital City together. Marge left behind to deal with her son's bullies and his growing nerd rep. Obviously, just another case of Homer having fun while Marge very much doesn't. So here we are, Homer and Mindy in a hotel room, getting crowned king and queen of energy at some fancy dinner, complete with a fortune cookie telling him he'll find happiness with a new love. He's this close to throwing Marge away for the chance to live the dream with Mindy, and he's still not fully understanding how horrible that is. But eventually Homer does the right thing, saying no to Mindy and calling Marge over for some weirdly awkward romantic reunion. But let's face it, Marge deserves so much better than a guy who needs a fortune cookie to remind him not to cheat. She should have left him at hello in this one. But I guess there must be some reason these two have lasted as long as they have. Well, in Secrets of a Successful Marriage, Homer decides to share those tips with the world. Only he never bothers to get Marge's permission to talk about anything. So Homer's with the guys at Lenny's 4 poker night, and Homer folds a winning hand, not even realizing it's a straight flush. Moe is losing his mind, but it's Homer, an idiot, so nobody's truly surprised. By the time Homer realizes his mistake, everyone has long gone, and Lenny just looks at Homer like,
"Get the hell out of here!"
So yeah, maybe he is slow, but Homer doesn't like feeling that everybody else thinks that. Determined to prove he's not slow or an idiot, Homer decides he's gonna teach a class at the Adult Center on Secrets of a Successful Marriage, of all things. The irony is so thick, you could cut it with a knife. But here's the kicker, he's got nothing to say about marriage, because let's face it, Homer's just about the worst husband imaginable. So what does he do instead? He spills every little secret about Marge and their love life to a bunch of total strangers. And when Marge catches wind, she's obviously furious at him for betraying their trust. Homer promises to stop, but quickly realizes that his students are only there to hear about the drama. So he just continues blabbing about all of Marge's most intimate secrets. Reason number 533 why Marge should leave him. But Homer takes it even further. He has the genius idea to invite his class to dinner to see their successful marriage in action. And obviously, it's a total disaster. Marge throws everyone out, including Homer, and tells him he's not stepping back into the house until she can trust him again. And who the hell knows when that'll be? Now Homer's holed up in the treehouse, going absolutely feral, making a Marge out of leaves and rags. babbling like a lovesick fool. And as for Marge, she isn't gonna be single long, apparently. Having heard that Homer's on the outs, Mo is already swooping in, cozying up to Marge. Although, whether that's an upgrade is questionable. Finally, just as Homer's ready to give up and slink off for good, he suddenly has this grand revelation, the big reason that he and Marge are made for one another. He tells Marge the one thing he can give her that no one else can: total dependence. Yeah, that's his pitch. She will be taking care of him until the day he dies. What a great offer. Marge, sane or idiot that she is, takes him back even if she doesn't exactly look thrilled about this needy, clingy man-child of a husband. Because, you know, why the hell would she be? The next morning, Mo's at the kitchen window, whispering to Marge.
So, Marge, are you really happy? Really?
But when Homer pops up, Mo bolts like he's seen a ghost. A pretty big, pudgy ghost, but still a ghost. And there we are, Marge, still tied down to this doofus who's literally useless on his own. At this point, you've got to wonder if she's a masochist or just resigned to life with this eternally crappy guy. But then I guess we know what the answer to that would be. And Marge discovers the answer while she's finally taken the chance to do something just for her enjoyment in A Streetcar Named Marge. The episode starts with Homer, Bart, and Lisa glued to the TV when Marge proudly announces that she's taking a break from the same old crap every day, cooking, cleaning, and raising Maggie. She's auditioning for a local production of A Streetcar Named Desire, hoping to meet new people and get some actual life experience that isn't poop or food related, or both. Bart and Lisa barely look up, and Homer just dismisses it, straight up telling her she's got no business doing anything outside the house. Well, if ever there was a reason to go find a better life, there he is. Well, Marge decides to go for it anyway, just to spite her family, and she gets cast in the lead role of Blanche, her first shot at something for herself. And she's got Ned playing the role of Stanley, the uncaring, oafish love interest. Basically, he's playing Homer, but in shape. Meanwhile, Maggie's in a daycare at a hellhole known as the Ayn Rand School for Tots, where they snatch away her pacifier and run the place like a little baby dictatorship. Maggie starts a whole mini rebellion, but we're not here to talk about Maggie. Marge needs to learn her lines for her big scene, but Homer can't be bothered to help her. Instead, he's glued to his dumb bowling game and orders her around like she's his personal servant. Realizing that her own husband has no interest in helping her with something that means a lot to her, Marge storms off to Ned's to get the help Homer refuses to give. The night before the performance, Marge and Ned are rehearsing the iconic bottle-smashing scene, but Marge is still holding back. But then Homer shows up, honking outside like a caveman who can't just wait 5 minutes. Suddenly all of Marge's withheld rage comes out, and she finally lets it rip, smashing the bottle and lunging at Ned, finally nailing her scene and getting a big nod from the director. And a lot of terror from Ned himself. Homer's still clueless, whining for Marge to open his pudding can. Marge storms out again, telling him to figure out his own damn dessert, while she heads back to focus on what matters, her own interests. Seriously, Marge, just leave him already. On show day, the whole family show up to see Marge's big performance. Homer is initially bored senseless, but when Marge hits the stage as Blanche, he finally starts seeing the whole mistreating your wife thing a little too close to home. He watches her bring Blanche to life, feeling actual sympathy and guilt, and realizing just what a terrible husband Stanley truly is. Yeah, not quite. Afterward, Marge sees him sulking and thinks he's just bored, but he surprises her with an apology, saying he realizes he's been a crappy husband like Stanley. Oh, okay, so apparently Homer does have some sense of self-awareness. Marge, a saint as always, forgives him and they leave the theater, with Homer promising to try to treat her right for once. Should have got out when you had the chance, Marge. Can't get off this streetcar. And let's be real, Homer would still screw up her life even if she escaped. Our next episode is another example of how useless Homer can be when it comes to choosing between his own selfishness or Marge. It's the War of the Simpsons. Alright, so Marge and Homer kick things off with a dinner party, and Homer predictably turns it into a train wreck. He's wasted, spewing insults, and gawking at Maude Flanders like a horny teenager. Literally one of the most humiliating things Homer could do to his own wife. Dr. Hibbert even warns Marge to roll Homer on his side so he doesn't choke on his own puke. Charming, right? Marge is mortified. The next day, she's vacuuming Homer awake and hauling him into the car to yell at him with the radio blaring so the kids don't hear. Though, let's face it, they know the drill. She ruined her life the second she married him. She's finally wondering if she's hit her limit with this man-child. Well, by finally, we mean for the 16th time in this video. As part of the fallout, Marge decides they need marriage counseling and signs them up for a weekend retreat with the Lovejoys. Homer is not thrilled, but Marge has done enough swallowing her pride for one lifetime. Well, 20. She ropes in Grandpa to babysit, though he can barely keep up with Bart's antics. And he was in the military, so you know it's extra bad. At the retreat, Homer zones out during all of the counseling until he hears about some mythical fish, General Sherman, swimming nearby. Marge is pouring her heart out, and he's over there secretly planning a fishing trip. Shows where his priorities are, right? Sure enough, the next morning, Homer sneaks out to chase this fish, totally blowing off the marriage counseling. Marge sees him from the window, and her frustration reaches new heights. How could he do that? Oh, right, it's Homer. But Homer, in all his oblivious glory, is locked in a battle with General Sherman, thinking he's proving something to himself, as if that's more important than saving his marriage. Just sums up his approach to this relationship. Meanwhile, Bart and Lisa are running Grandpa ragged, throwing a wild party, trashing the house. Grandpa finally gets them to clean up by pretending to cry, like he's not the true chaos mastermind here. Homer rolls back to Marge with the fish in hand, smug as ever. But she's furious and lays down an ultimatum. He has to let the fish go and keep his wife, or keep the fish and lose his wife. A no-brainer for anyone who isn't a total jerk. Well, it takes a minute, but finally Homer has a flicker of sense and lets the fish go to show Marge he cares about something other than himself, sometimes occasionally. So they head home and everything's magically fine again because Marge just can't stay mad at him for whatever reason. But honestly, what does she see in this guy? Homer's big gesture basically boiled down to not prioritizing a fish over his wife. The bar is just getting lower and lower and lower, as if it was ever high to begin with. But our next episode, Colonel Homer, pushes the bar even lower as Homer urges Marge to be supportive of him spending all his time with a young country star who loves him. What? Homer and Marge are at the movie theater, and Homer is such a loudmouth jackass that he keeps annoying everyone, talking over the whole film and even spoiling the ending. Marge is so sick of his crap that she snaps at him in front of everybody. She goes off on him in front of everyone, basically saying no one gives a damn about his stupid opinions. Finally, naturally the crowd loves it and cheers for her, and Homer's left feeling humiliated. He's so mad that he actually drives off into the night, rambling about how Marge has crushed his quiet dignity, as if he ever had any to begin with. All he does is strip her dignity away. Homer ends up out in the boonies at some rundown country bar, feeling all sorry for himself, and that's where he meets Lurleen, a country singer who belts out a song that hits a little too close to home for him, basically saying how his stupid wife doesn't understand him or his needs, when, as we've seen over and over, that is not necessarily the problem. But Homer is so taken with her and her song that he decides to become her manager, giving himself the ridiculous title Colonel Homer, mostly as an excuse to wear a cowboy hat. But Homer is all in on Lurleen, and Marge can't stand it. She's furious that he's suddenly all devoted to managing Lurleen's career, basically ignoring her, his own wife, in the process. And who can blame her? The dude ditches his family after one argument and starts managing some other woman. And not for the first time, even in this video. As if that's not enough, Lurleen has a major crush on Homer. She makes it clear that she wants more than just a business partnership, and not in any subtle way. Bunk With Me Tonight is not exactly a cryptic puzzle. He finally tells Lurleen he can't be with her and claims it's all because of Marge and the kids. But honestly, it's like, why did he even let it get this far? Why did he constantly dismiss his wife's concerns for this? So he ditches Lurleen and runs back to Marge, acting like he's made this big, heroic decision to stay faithful. Damn, he keeps doing this, huh? Framing his loyalty as some kind of major victory or challenge. Anyway, they make up, Marge takes him back again, and they're supposedly all lovey-dovey. Meanwhile, Lurleen, the poor soul left in his wake, is singing her heart out on TV, wishing Homer and Marge the best through gritted teeth, but it counts. Another episode that shows how understanding Marge is while Homer drags her through excruciating misery. Seriously, Marge needs to find someone better. Imagine the life she could have had. Actually, no need to imagine when our next episode, Every Man's Dream, shows us what could have been. Alright, so Homer's dozing off right in the middle of a meltdown at the nuclear plant, which lands him in the hospital. Probably one of the better outcomes of his mid-work naps. Turns out Homer's got narcolepsy, and instead of doing anything about it, he uses it as his get-out-of-jail-free card for every responsibility he's ever had. Especially when it comes to his marriage. He's milking this excuse just to nap all day and dodge every chore, every commitment, everything that might require a shred of effort. And who gets the honor of doing all of them? Yup, Marge is beyond fed up and finally tells him to get his narcolepsy meds, but Homer can't even be bothered to get them without stopping for a beer at Moe's. When he shows up at home smelling like a brewery, Marge finally hits her limit. She wants to get to the bottom of Homer's inconsiderate habits. She drags him to family counseling, hoping for a wake-up call, but instead, the counselor just ups and tells them they should try a little time apart and maybe, think about a divorce. Not the worst advice, she could do better. Homer crashes at the nuclear plant, and soon Marge is switching her relationship status to
It's complicated.
and changing her name back to Marge Bouvier. Homer's barely processed any of it when he meets a pharmacist named Candace, who drugs him up and sweet-talks him right into bed. Yes, he sleeps with another woman. Say goodbye to that marriage. Now he's off dating Candace like he's some kind of free man. And to make things worse, Candace's dad? Yeah, he's dating Marge. This whole thing is very, very weird, but hey, Marge has got her own life now with someone who, frankly, seems way better than Homer ever was. Not that it was a high bar to clear, so Homer tries to get her back, telling her this guy's no good. But Marge isn't listening. She's ready to move on and even says yes to a proposal from Candace's dad. Even though they've known each other for like a week, suddenly Candace drops the bomb that she's pregnant with Homer's baby.
I'm already pregnant!
And let me say on behalf of everybody, girl, run. But then Homer wakes up and it was all just a nightmare. He's so horrified about the idea of becoming a father again. I mean, being with someone else that he swears he'll be better. But before you know it, he's back at the bar with Candace, watching his life slip away, faster than usual anyway. So Homer bolts back to the house and finds Marge, happy and whole, eating dinner with Candace's dad, Bart, Lisa, and Maggie, while he's left outside like some washed-up stray dog. Lisa gives him the cold shoulder, choosing to stay with her new dad, even saying Merry Christmas to Homer like he's just some holiday charity case. They all want nothing to do with him anymore. Homer, realizing he's lost it all, wails into the night, only for Marge to wake up. Turns out this was her dream. And as the scene fades, we find out that the therapy is just a tattoo on some girl's back that might as well be the theme. Don't get drunk in Brooklyn. I don't really understand the ending to that, and this whole episode seems pointless, but, yeah, she should still leave him for this. Maybe just leave him to take care of the kids and see how hard it is. Well, luckily, that's exactly what happens in this next episode. Homer alone. Marge finally gets some time to herself and sees what life could be when she isn't tearing her hair out. The episode opens with Marge at her breaking point. Damn, we're starting there? Okay, man. The family has taken her for granted and pushed her so far to her limit that now she's stressed to the edge. She parks her car smack in the middle of Springfield's busiest bridge, holding up traffic in one hell of a jam. The whole town's watching it on the news, and it's chaos, with Kent Brockman getting knocked around and Arnie Pie dropping his bagel, which is maybe the biggest tragedy in all of this. Chief Wiggum calls Homer to come get her off the bridge, and he has to beg her to come home, apologizing for how he and the family have treated her, reminding her how much they love her and how they'll treat her better. She's moved to believe him because, well, she does not learn. But as soon as she steps out of the car, she's immediately thrown into jail. Quimby and Wiggum start fighting over whether she should stay locked up, with Quimby wanting the ladies' votes, so he eventually forces her release. But this whole mess just drills in how Marge needs a break from the train wreck that is her home life, or her marriage. Depends on your perspective there, I guess. Marge sees a spa ad for Rancho Relaxo and realizes she badly needs a vacation. Homer, clueless as ever, tries to talk her out of it, whining about the kids misbehaving and the last time they tried a family trip. The family are simply not capable of spending time together. But Marge finally says no to him. She's doing this thing alone, just to have some space to herself. She tells Homer she's not asking for a divorce, though maybe she should be. Just some solo downtime. While Marge is living it up at the spa, Homer's falling to pieces trying to watch the kids, which is to say that he's basically just freaking out. Bart and Lisa are being tortured over at Patty and Selma's, and Homer staples Maggie's diaper closed because he's so hopeless at basic parenting. He even loses her when she sneaks out looking for Marge. It's only after some bumbling from the cops that she's found asleep by an ice cream shop, hugging a statue that looks like Marge, which is as adorable as it is deeply, deeply concerning. By the time Marge is back, she's refreshed, and Homer is a mess who's barely kept things together. Seeing the wreckage that awaits her, she takes one look at him and should be thinking, I should have stayed at the spa. I mean, he's clearly not fit to be a parent. Instead, she thanks him for trying to help, the kids promise to pitch in, and Marge gives in. Back to the daily grind with the guy who's just never gonna learn. There's a continuing pattern here, right? Marge just does not respect herself, apparently. But maybe she just loves a man who doesn't love her in the same way. Case in point, yet another episode where Homer comes this close to cheating. Homer's night out is another opportunity for Marge to leave. But will she? So Bart gets a spy camera from a mail order catalog, which takes forever to arrive. But when it does, he's snapping pics all over the house. Naturally, he catches Homer and Marge in some private moments. Good to remember the few times they're not actually fighting, I guess. Later, Homer's off to a bachelor party for his supervisor at a power plant, Eugene Fisk. Meanwhile, Marge decides to take the kids to the Rusty Barnacle for dinner. Little does she know, that's exactly where the bachelor party is happening. How could this all go horribly wrong? Things get awkward when a belly dancer named Princess Cashmere shows up at the party. The Fisks aren't into it, but Homer, he's having a blast dancing with her. Bart, feeling queasy from his squid dinner, stumbles upon the party and snaps a pic of Homer slipping money into Cashmere's G-string. Oh, okay, so that's how it could go wrong. The next day at school, Bart develops the photo in the camera club. Martin Prince loves it and wants a copy. Little creep. Anyway, Bart says no to Martin but gives one to Milhouse with strict instructions not to share it. Of course, Milhouse can't keep it under wraps, and soon enough, everyone in Springfield has seen it. Marge finds out during her aerobics class and is furious at how Homer has humiliated her yet again. When Homer gets home, Marge confronts him with a picture. Bart admits he took it and Marge sends him to his room as punishment. But he gets off lightly. Marge is so mad at Homer that she packs him a suitcase and kicks him out of the house entirely. Homer crashes at Barney's place and then gets grilled by Mr. Burns at work about the whole mess. I mean, everybody wants to know about what's going on in their marriage. It's that counseling class all over again. Homer tries to apologize to Marge, but she's not having it. Instead, she tells him he needs to teach Bart that women aren't just objects if he wants to truly earn her forgiveness. Seems kinda easy, but okay, Marge. So off they go on this wild goose chase through Springfield strip clubs to find Princess Cashmere. They finally spot her at the Sapphire Lounge. Homer introduces himself and Bart to Cashmere just before she goes on stage. Then, in a twist of fate, Homer ends up on stage himself during a dance routine. Seeing Bart in the audience inspires him to make this heartfelt speech about respecting women. It's surprisingly moving. So much so that even the singer decides to call his mom afterward. Of course, it's not really the place for it, and it's kind of a buzzkill, to be honest. But Marge is there too and hears everything. Touched by Homer's sincerity, she forgives him, and they patch things up right there in the club. This probably is one of Homer's better attempts at forgiveness, but Marge still deserves way better. I don't even know what she's thinking at this point, honestly. It's like she's willing to put up with literally anything that he can come up with. For example, if Homer hypothetically spent all his money on gambling, and now he was in debt to the mob and paid it off by letting them use the family home for an adult movie. Yeah, this is the Bonfire of Manatees. The episode opens with Homer betting on football games like he's some kind of expert. Only his expert advice is coming from some scammy book by Professor Pigskin. Lisa, smarter than the whole family, immediately spots that this whole thing is a con. But does Homer listen? Nope, he just hands over his credit card info and goes all in on a bet, which, surprise, he loses. And of course, he didn't just lose his own money, he borrowed from Fat Tony. So now he has basically put his entire family at the mercy of the mob. Next thing we know, Tony's thugs are hammering Homer's hands and proposing an alternative way to play, letting the mob film an adult movie in his house. Okay, so not only are they losing money, now they also have to deep clean their furniture. To get the family out of the way, Homer hands Marge some tickets to a sketchy Santa's village. She's already suspicious, but she reluctantly agrees because maybe he's changed? But no, the trip's a dumpster fire. Lisa gets a rash from the reindeer, and Santa dies. It doesn't get much worse than that. Meanwhile, Homer's at home dodging questions from Lenny and Carl, who stumble in and join the adult production. Let's not think about that. By the time Marge and the kids come home early and see the production truck, Marge's fury is at an all-time high. Homer tries to talk his way out, but Marge has had it, especially after he admits he borrowed from the mafia and is also now part of the adult film industry. She smashes his car for good measure and drives off, leaving him to explain to the kids how he screwed up yet again. Well, I don't think we've ever seen her lose it that badly, so Marge takes a break to sort herself out, even meeting a handsome manatee rescuer, Dr. Caleb Thorne. Homer, on the other hand, panics and drags the kids on a chaotic road trip to find her, which involves crashing with his sketchy cousins and cramming Bart in a dog crate. He finally finds Marge, who's seriously considering what life could be without Homer's crap. Again. I mean, she's considered it every single episode so far, but Homer's too thick-headed to get it. He tries to play hero by saving some manatees from jet ski bullies, which ends with him getting his ass kicked. Marge somehow feels sympathy and takes him back yet again, probably knowing full well he'll never change. I mean, surely she has to know by now. Back at the plant, Homer leaves a literal manatee to cover for him as Mr. Burns' new best friend. If that's not a metaphor for Homer's life, what is? Marge, on the other hand, would have a far more depressing metaphor for her life. She's basically stuck in one place, doing something she hates every single day because of choices Homer makes. Speaking of, our next episode is You Only Move Twice. One morning, Homer lands this dream job with Globex and packs up the whole family, moving them to Cypress Creek. He's got a new boss, Hank Scorpio, who's weirdly invested in Homer's hopes and dreams. But it turns out that Scorpio is a full-on supervillain with a James Bond-style fortress and evil plans for world domination. But does Homer notice? Hell no. He's living his best life in a job that's literally made for doing nothing. He thinks he's found paradise, and his family must feel the same way. Wrong. Poor Marge is bored out of her skull in their too-perfect house. Everything's automated, so there's nothing to clean or cook, and she ends up just guzzling wine all day, which to her is a major problem. Lisa, allergic to every plant in town because, well, Lisa cannot have anything good happen to her. Bart gets tossed in the remedial class with kids who can barely spell their own names just because he doesn't know fractions yet. The point is that Cypress Creek isn't working out for anyone except clueless Homer, which means it isn't working out for anyone. One night, the family finally tells Homer they want out. They hate this town. They miss Springfield and nothing feels like home. But Homer's torn because he actually likes his job for once in his life. Even if his boss might be a little off. Who cares what they think when he's happy? But he accepts how they feel. So he heads over to talk to Scorpio, who's casually waging a war in his lair when Homer shows up with his family crisis. And you know what? Scorpio, being surprisingly cool for an evil mastermind, actually tells Homer to put his family first.
Homer, I'm disappointed, but I think you need to do what's best for your family.
So Homer heads out, mid-battle, probably the most oblivious man ever. But hey, the family finally gets to go home. Back in Springfield, Homer finds a parting gift on the doorstep, a note from Hank Scorpio, who's conquered the East Coast and apparently still has time to thank Homer for his hard work. Oh, and he's gifted Homer a football team, just not the one he actually wanted. Homer's bummed as he watches the hopeless Denver Broncos fumble around in his yard, like that's somehow the biggest letdown in his life. Not, his constant humiliation and dismissal of his family. But seriously, Marge went through all that and still didn't leave his ass? She's sitting in a perfect house, sipping wine in some utopian neighborhood, and she packs it all up to go back to their dump in Springfield for Homer. If that's not Stockholm Syndrome, I don't know what is. I guess it would be Springfield Syndrome, actually.